Good morning, everyone. So this is almost 10:10. Sorry for the slight delay. We had some technical issues with the link to access the conference. Since this has been fixed by Marianti, the number of attendees is increasing. We are already reaching around 350 participants. So I guess we can start now. I would like to say good morning and welcome to this second day of the conference, Cybersecurity in Railways, that is co-organized by the EU Agency for Cybersecurity, ENISA, and the EU Agency for Railways, ERA. My name is Thomas Châtelet, and together with Marianti Theocaridou from ENISA, we will continue to be your moderators for today's session with the presentation and the discussions. As in yesterday's session, you will have the opportunity to raise questions using the Q&A chat to address your questions to the audience. This morning we have two sessions. The first one on standardization, on research and innovation, and the second one on cooperation that will be moderated by Marianti. So let's start right away with a session on research on innovation, where we will be focusing on Shift2Rail's activities on rail cybersecurity. And we will also have the link between the research and the solution with the chair of the UIC Cybersecurity Solution Platform. So with regards to research and innovation in the railway domain, I guess one must pay honor to whom honor is due, and Shift2Rail is certainly a great contributor in the field of railway cybersecurity. So we have today the pleasure to receive two members of the technical demonstrator 2.11. We have Serge BENOLIEL, who is in charge within Alstom of the Cybersecurity Management Office for Products and Solutions Cybersecurity. Serge is the work package leader for X2Rail 3, and he will present a summary of the achievement so far, including as well what has been done in X2Rail 1 and what is the forecast for X2Rail 5. The presentation will be then complemented by Markus Alexander Vischy, who is heading the R&D IT security department of Siemens Mobility. Markus is also active in standardization and European research activities in the field of rail automation security, and is leading the work package 8.3 on security architecture and protection profiles within X2Rail 3. So Markus will deliver a detailed presentation on the deliverables from X2Rail 1.3 for the definition of essential parameters for interoperability. Serge, Markus, the floor is yours.
Serge, the leader of TD2.11 on work package 8 and 9 X2Rail 3, Shift2Rail. Okay. So the agenda of this presentation, first a short introduction of what is a reminder of what is Shift2Rail, the program objective, project overview. We'll see then X2Rail 1 result shortly, X2Rail 3, and an outlook of the next step for Shift2Rail cybersecurity. Then we will have Markus who will present the detailed result, technical result of this work package, and it will be followed by a question and answer session. So Shift2Rail, as a reminder, is a big public and private partnership for railway sector with a set of objectives for innovation and a set of objectives to increase by 50% the capacity to increase the reliability, to diminish the life cycle, to reduce the life cycle cost, to contribute to the reduction of external emission, and globally to improve the efficiency of European railway area. Shift2Rail, as in this slide, you see the founding member of Shift2Rail, the current associated member, and the all people who contribute to it. Today we have 28 members, more than around 500 participants, 29 countries, and more than 100 research center universities which are implied in Shift2Rail. In Shift2Rail is divided in innovation program, and we are part in cybersecurity of the innovation program 2 related to advanced traffic management and control system. And in that, there is a dedicated work stream of a set of work package to achieve the optimal level of cybersecurity to best manage threats related to signaling and telecom system in the most economical way to have just enough cybersecurity. Here it is, what is the impact of cybersecurity for the different stakeholders of rail system? So for passenger, the expectation of a cybersecurity effort will be to have availability, punctuality not impacted by cyber attack. And of course safety. For product and system supplier to perform cybersecurity activity means to have additional requirements related to product development for product itself and product development processes. So these additional requirements will may come from the cybersecurity standard as the EUC 62443, 4-1 and 4-2. At system integrator or service provider, we will also have additional requirements for system integration, commissioning and maintenance. And for operator, we will also have additional requirements for operation. And these additional cybersecurity requirements will come from standard, either the 62443 standard or 71 standard. The X2Rail, so cybersecurity within the X2Rail initiative, in fact, has happened during the 3 X2Rail projects, 3 of the X2Rail projects, so X2Rail 1, X2Rail 3, and X2Rail 5. Currently, we are in the second year of X2Rail 3, and we are finishing the activity of X2Rail 3, and we will soon start in 21 X2Rail 5 on the cybersecurity activities. So in X2Rail 3, we have 2 work packages which are identified as work package 8 and work package 9. And here you have a different contributor or participant to these 2 work package, which are both system operator, railway duty holder, or system integrator, which contribute to this cybersecurity work package, including also a research organization. Sorry. Okay. So result of X2Rail 1. So during the period of 2015 to 2018, first we have important conclusion is that the standard ESC standard 60443, 4-1 and 4-2 is considered as relevant for the railway context, and so the subsequent activities of X2Rail 1 will be based on this standard, and we will use that to perform the risk analysis, to perform the architecture definition, and so on. And we also have been also performed a detailed risk assessment of generic railway signaling system, which allow to demonstrate that the global result of security level vector on signaling system should be around 3 on all but 2 zones. The activity go on in X2Rail 3 work package with the different results, which will be soon published on the internet. So we have first a definition of a generic cybersecurity architecture, which will provide a set of shared service for the signaling system. We investigate also and select a set of protocol to share these shared security services, ensuring interoperability. Protection profile has been defined for trackside, onboard, and adaptable communication system components, which have been also selected in a consistent way with shared security service, and this protection profile will be the support of subsequent technical demonstrators. In X2Rail 1, there will be a risk assessment method which has been defined, compliant to the C443 requirement, and this risk assessment method has been simplified in X2Rail 3 and updated to better efficiency. In X2Rail 3, we also provide a report on Internet of Things cybersecurity, so how to handle it and tackle it, how to also take into account cybersecurity into legacy systems, so there is a set of proposals for that, and to secure safety resilient architecture. Work Package 9 is a part of X2Rail 3, which is ongoing today and which will go during 2021 year. We will address the following topics. First, security verification and notify the best practice for security verification at product level, at system level, and also at supply chain. So to address the whole topic of what should be performed to ensure security of third party, of supplier, of delivered product by supplier. A set of demonstrators will also be addressed, such as ACS, Adaptable Communication System, or Connecta, and to go a bit deeper in the cybersecurity of these demonstrators. And also, a railway CSIRT feasibility will be studied and with in cooperation with Shift2Rail, which is another initiative inside Shift2Rail. And the idea is to provide a recommendation and guideline to set up a railway dedicated computer security incident response team. In 2020, we will also further dissemination activities and to provide our result to the various over certification or like ENISA, ENISA-ERA. X2Rail 5, so it will be it will start in October 21 and up to 23. And we will go on the cybersecurity assessment on other demonstrators to join with that demonstration report. The CSIRT, we will perform a prototype of a CSIRT, so applying the guidelines we will have defined in X2Rail 3, and to perform some test use case, and provide global recommendation on the railway system and to ensure cyber resilience and response capabilities. Okay, thank you very much for your attention. I let the floor to my colleague Markus, which will present the more technical detail about the result of X2Rail 3.
Yeah, thank you Serge, for the introduction. I will present, as Serge said, the technical results. So it was an amazing opportunity for us in the Shift2Rail, working for 4 years on a very long risk assessments that we did in the 3 years, it was a lot of discussions, but after 3 years, we found a group of the key stakeholders in Europe to really form an interoperability standard that will create a harmonized market for cybersecurity in Europe. So the technical interoperability was finally being able to form with the key stakeholders. And as we go for the next slide, you see the architecture. This is an architecture we took out from the ER-BTCS generic architecture and the ULINX architecture, and put also additional topics that are in the other work packages of Shift2Rail, namely the future rail mobile communication system on 5G and with the adaptable communication system, the automatic train operation, ATO, and connector topics, which is an effort to create a harmonized Ethernet-based bus on the train. What we are focusing on was if you go back again.
Yes, right.
Thanks. Is on the red zone. So this is a zone in convert drawing. You see the big security zones, and we're focusing in the work package 8 on the red zones, which is the core of the rail automation network, and namely the upper red zone where we have the interlocking, the RBC, and also the ATO track set together with an operation control system, and all the track object and other related interlocking in RBCs. What's new, what's also core of the architecture is this blue zone next to it. It's a rail automation security zone where we have the ETCS key management center and system, the KMC, and the new box, which is called shared security services. And I will go then later on this one. We have another red zone in signaling on the lower part of this drawing, which is the train, the onboard architecture, where we have also the core of the rail automation system containing the European Vital Computer, the EVC, the new component for the automated train operation, the ATO on board, as well as the driver-machine interface and certain sensors that are connected. The yellow zone is the command control communication network of the train management, controlling the doors, the brakes, the drives, but also lighting system powers and so on. With all the use cases of the future mobile communication system, when we're using 5G in the future systems, there will be additional services through the wireless network. Namely, the passenger Wi-Fi, which is the green zone, the comfort zone for controlling the comfort functions in the train, and auxiliary services zone, which includes, for example, CCTV cameras and other services like energy monitoring and so on. And the same is then reflected on the track side, where we have then communication to the telephony network, to the internet for the public Wi-Fi, but also to back office systems of the operator for advertisements, if you have screens in the train, of course, CCTV, maybe some billing purposes and train management. This, of course, this architecture calls out when you do is these types of communication over one wireless systems or separated into an operator network and a public network at least, but you mix a lot of traffic, and this calls out for additional security measures for this new 5G communication to differentiate the traffic to the different subsystems. This can be done as we do it now for the future rail mobile communication system in different ways, by physically separating it on a gateway or by using a common Ethernet-like connector to distinguish between the different virtual LANs with end-to-end security. And I'll come to this later in the protection profiles. When we take a new look, the next slide shows the detail of the rail automation security zone for the IEC 62443 for the risk assessment that we did when we require security level 3 to defend against sophisticated attackers. We need a couple of mandatory services which are centrally. One is system-wide time service, what we call time, that does time synchronization. This is needed to synchronize logs and also provide time for the certificate validation. A central log system is needed to send security logs and events to this destination, which can forward it to another system, which is the security incident event management system, a security alarm system that a security operations center is using to react on attacks that could happen on the system. The intrusion detection and continuous monitoring is another requirement from 62443, which looks at network traffic and suspicious traffic and reports it also to the scene. We have also the identity and access management system, which is a system that has all the users and the right associations to our systems, backup systems to restore when there was an attack on the system and the system got compromised, so we can do a backup from it. And an asset inventory, we restore all the assets that are connected into the rail automation system. This also helps us to get a better security incident event management system and, of course, a better asset management. When the systems get a little bit more complicated than 10 or 20 devices, there's a highly recommended services, the public key management, that the key management for certificates is completely automated, and the central software update systems to provide an easier way for rolling out security updates and software changes. And this, of course, as we heard yesterday, must be along with the safety procedures. So there's a clear strategy to separate safety and security. And the 5701, as we heard also yesterday, provides the right tool to do this. When we go for the next slide, we will see that we looked also then at the protocols to these services. Since this should be an international standard, this is then the environment that each product supplier can use to develop its product portfolio towards it, and provides also the ability to do cross-border traffic. That eases it, because when we have this type of environment, each country, the trains can easily move from one country to another and don't have to switch protocols. That's why we are very keen on defining some protocols that everybody can accept, and therefore we have put these criteria on it before we started. So we want that the protocol is an international standard. It means that it's a published document and the protocol definition is stable, so existing for a couple of years. We want to have also a widespread use of the protocol, so it's also used in other domains that actually provides more stability and accessibility. And typically, this leads also to open source implementations that they are available, and we can choose and integrate it into our products easily. So we don't want to have any proprietary protocols. Since we're doing security, we need also that the protocol supports authentication and integrity protection with cryptographic means. And encryption is only needed when confidentiality is needed. Most of our protocols and systems that we use don't contain confidential data, so integrity protection is sufficient. However, for key exchange and other sensitive parts of the system, encryption is needed, and then we apply it also. Of course, we look also at the historic vulnerabilities of this protocol and the implementation of these protocols and the availability of the patches. If there's an abandoned protocol implementation, that's not a good indication to use it in our long-term rail automation environment. The result is presented in the next slide. So we did apply this to all the different protocols to the system. So if you go to the next slide, Serge, then we see the result.
We are.
Yeah, now it's showing. Excellent. So after we looked at the criteria, we looked at all the services and selected then different options for analysis and made the pros and cons for each of the options. And the final result was then defined is the recommended protocol that's also gone into the protection profiles. For system time synchronization, we have identified NTP version 1 with an outlook on the newer protocol NTS, which provides also security, although the attack possibilities on NTP are very minor. But there's an outlook once NTS becomes more widely used, we'll migrate into NTS. But for the time being, for the next 3 to 5 years, NTP will be the standard for this. For central logging, syslog NG, that means syslog over TLS, it's an RFC. We identified the same is true for the protocol to the security event management system. For certificate management, the automatic management for certificates, the choice was very clear. There are a couple of options there, but CMP is already used in UNIFE for the KMC, the online KMC subset 137. So this will be also used for the core of the rail automation network and not only for ETCS. The identity and access management system, the modern protocol is here STIM version 2 over TLS, also an RFC. For backup, it's rsync over SSH. And remote software update is a combination of OPC UA, secure conversation with HTTPS. And for the asset inventory, the automatic asset inventory to read out the firmware versions and other key data of the product. Again, it's an OPC UA secure communication. So, this was put together, and we see it here in this slide, into protection profiles. This was developed last year. We did a joint undertaking, so all the founding members and the associated members that we saw on Serge slides before were reviewing these protection profiles. We have finalized them end of March by incorporating the comments that we received. And the publication is happening any day now. There exist 3 of these documents. We have done one for the track side components that include track objects, but also RBCs and interlockings and operation control systems. Onboard components, so all the components are connected to an Ethernet. And a central component of the new architecture for the future rail mobile communication system, the adaptable communication system, which is the gateway to the 5G. This contains the requirements from 62443 4-2, plus the interoperability requirements that means the selected protocols that we saw on the previous slide. So this is all put together in this protection profile, and the really nice thing is that this protection profile is aligned to the TS 5701, the cybersecurity requirement specification, which mentioned there. So the protection profile can be used also in the context of the TS 5701. What we will do further this year, we have different demonstrators in Shift2Rail, namely the ATO, the ACS, and wireless object controller. This protection profile will be first evaluated with the ACS system. This is currently ongoing. And of course, what we want to do is to disseminate this amazing work that has been put together to this by this key stakeholders in Europe in standardization bodies. Where can you get some more information? We have a website, although the documents are not yet published, but you will find it by following this link, or just Google X2Rail -3 and you come directly to the site. You need to go to results. Currently, it's not published. There are some minor checks still need to be done, but we expected that in the next few days and weeks, the documents will all be there. Yeah, that shows you how we achieve technical interoperability, a harmonized market in Europe that lowers the cost for procurement and gives also the vendors a wider market to sell the products in different countries and not having additional changed interfaces when we have the product in a project in Germany or France or UK or Italy. That's all from my side. So we have, Thomas, I think we have some time for questions now.
Yeah, thank you very much, Serge, and also Markus, for this very detailed presentation. We are seeing in the Q&A part already a lot of questions. However, as there might be some synergies with also what UIC is doing on the CSSP platform, I would like to go for Catherine's presentation first and then take all together all the questions. So we will come back to the questions after Catherine's presentation. Again, thank you very much, Serge and Markus. So for now, let's focus on another aspect of innovation, that is the UIC pragmatic approach to find tailor-made solutions addressing railway cybersecurity threats. And we have the honor of having the chairperson of the cybersecurity solution platform. Catherine HOUBION started working for the Belgian Rails group in 2008, and she specifically rejoined ICT for Infrabel in 2014. She's being currently responsible for the CISO team. Catherine, in her capacity as a UIC CSSP leader, will present us the platform, the pragmatic approach, and the target for cybersecurity solutions catalog. Catherine, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So you're showing my slide, aren't you?
You want me to show your slides? Yes, definitely.
Yes, please. Yes, the last version of it.
No problem. There we go. Just
yeah, thank you. So maybe we can start moving on the next slide, please. Yes, thank you. So the cybersecurity platform started in 2020 and it's meant to last about 3 years. We gathered different infrastructure managers. The logo are presented on the slide here. We also have variable input from a railway undertaker, which is not on the slide here, but I still want to mention that is the NS. So basically, we are working mainly with cybersecurity experts coming from CISO teams, and also with experts from various technical fields such as IT, signaling, catenary, GSMR. So I think we have quite a good, well-balanced team to deal with topics related to governance and replace those topics back in our railway context. So Infrabel, as we said, leads the project, but there is also support provided by the core team with Marc Anthony, Erwin by Benu, and also, last but not least, Dan Mandock. Having said that, maybe we can move on to the next slide, please. So this is the goal of a platform. So to understand the picture we have here, we have to replace it in the early context of a project. The picture is actually the result of the very first brainstorming that took place at the early stage of the project. There was something quite particular regarding our projects when we started, because we had no predefined agenda. So no technical question to answer, no specific problem to solve. Basically, the purpose of the platform is to deal with cybersecurity questions, as a matter of fact. And cybersecurity, as you all know, is a hot but very wide topic. So the member, we are those who determine what we want to achieve within the platform. And the first purpose of the platform is to boost cybersecurity awareness among the members by defining what we, as member of the project, we think is meaningful for our sector. So what should we bear in mind? What topic should we consider? Why should we do this project? Well, obviously, the first thing that came up to us was that we as a group are cleverer. Then, since we all share the same objective as a whole, within our sector, if we collaborate, then it might be more cost efficient, especially when dealing with cybersecurity problems. And we are also much more powerful together when opposing our view to the market. So the first thing that came up to our mind was the need to develop a common understanding of what cybersecurity should mean within our sector. So what do we have in common? Well, let's look at our organizational model. The technical infrastructure that is shown on the left-hand side of the picture, the network we use, the services that we provide now or will be providing in the near future. Based on that, we can derive generic architecture, generic techniques to assess those architecture. Then, since we share the same critical infrastructures and application, then we should have a look at what we also have in common, that is to say vulnerabilities and risk assessment. And then we should take a look at our problem and how to solve them. And when we talk about problem, we talk mainly about the solution that we can have. When it comes to solution, we have 2 points of view, the user point of view and the supplier point of view, what the market can offer. Here again, we have response to meet our problem. See, either we have ways of fixing the problem that we face. We all know the meaning of a cyber incident, the burden of the legacy system, for instance. We also know how critical it is to preserve the service continuity in our sector. So we also have means to prevent things from happening, that is to say, monitoring tools, auditing tools, detection tools, we have process. Right, so there we are. We have categories of solution, and those we want to register for our needs. So let's have a look at our final goal. This is our solution catalog, represented on the right-hand side of the slide. There are 2 main categories of entries. Those based on the shared experience, things that we all have in common within the group, which is quite specific to the rail sector, to our domain. So threat landscape, risk process, legislation, CNI, SOC guidelines, any guidelines, actually, toolkits, architecture, common design. And all those, we have in common, and we are very specific and they are really meaningful for us. Second entry we talk about is anything that is actually will allow us to define a tariff system with control risk. That is to say, all that has to do with solution category and project. This is our catalog. This is our platform. This is our goal. Now that we have defined that, maybe we can move on to the next slide and see what is our scope. So nothing really complicated, nothing rocket science, as we then would say if it was here. But in short, based on what we have discussed last slide, the previous slide, we decided that we had to create an inventory of railway sector-specific risk and vulnerabilities. And we have to oppose this to what we have as technical trends and also networks, the networks we use. We have to be able to understand what is the impact of an incident, of a cyber incident, because it's quite different to deal with a cyber incident because we don't know what impact it will have on the performance. When will it be fixed? How we are going to respond? When we are going to get back on our feet? What will be the damage on the finance? What will be the reputation damage it will cause? And again, what could be the impact on safety? We had that very interesting conversation with one of the guys recently, and he said to me, the funny thing about, cyber incident is that we usually take, the risk starting with the safety analysis. And here it's just, we have to take into account different things, and which is quite particular to the cybersecurity platform. Indeed, this is what we feel. It's another way of addressing risk when it comes to cyber incident. If you want to see what risk you have, then you have to perform vulnerability and risk assessment. You have to do that all your service, all the networks that you have, end to end. And you can consider that with generic architecture that already exists, because there are tools that are existing. There are ways of assessing your risk that are already existed, available on the market. And then based on that, as we said, we intend to create a catalog of cybersecurity solution in a very ready-use way, ready-use tool form solution, as opposed to risk mitigation. We are in line with what the legislation said to us: know your risk and then solve your risk. Maybe we can move on to the next slide and see what our approach. First of all, we had to decide what was really important for us as railway sector, and start with those topics at first. So this was a very big discussion, and it took quite a lot of time. But still, we also had to bear in mind that we were not alone in the world, and that we had to understand what were the other projects going on around us, and we need to understand those. There are many, many projects going on, and we gladly can rely on ER-ISAC, for instance, to see conversion and make no duplication, because that's not being cost effective, of course. What we are all aware of is that we could benefit from all the different projects that are already there, and also maybe we could contribute to there as well. So what we do also within our platform is to compare our way of doing things within, with the platform. We like to compare how we do things, how we perform things. We like to learn from each other's mistakes, but also from our expertise. Again, another thing that is quite interesting and that we are very keen on doing is to evaluate and explore the market. It's not that we want to promote any product, any supplier, but we feel that we need to check what's on the market, and we call that the supplier slots. So we just want to need what the market could offer us. And then the fifth point is very important to us, because this is quite meaningful for us. A threat landscape, something that will belong to us, an approach that will be built on what we face in our work, what we face in our daily life every day, when we have incidents, when we have reports, when we have to perform, assessment, when we realize that we had a pen test that is not really, really good. So we can develop something that is quite useful for us and that is maybe not really existing as such. And the last point that is really important for us is that all the work that we're doing within this platform is based on sharing knowledge, which is quite important, because the experience we feel that we meet and all the topics that are dealt with within the platform are really important to us. And we tend to have a very comprehensive way of addressing topics within the platform, because we really want to feel that we are building a strong shared experience and also strong expertise within the group. It's what we could call a very pragmatic approach. So maybe we can move on to the next slide to see what will be the deliverables. So again, nothing very rocket science, nothing very complicated, but first of all, we will have to do what we call a usable catalog of solutions for railway cybersecurity. So we want to have something that has a very comprehensive entries that would be useful for us all. That meaning people that sort of taking part with that platform, but also people who are not, and maybe people who will think that maybe they will find in our catalog things that will be meaningful for them, because they all belong to the railway sector. We also want to have a very pragmatic threat landscape for railway, something that is updated at regular manner. Yes, we will sort of build snapshot of what's going on, sort of heat map regarding our threat landscape, and then we will have to describe a process of getting that updated from time to time. With that regarding that threat landscape, we are very willing to work together with ENISA, because ENISA has also something in mind regarding threat landscape, and we also gather many documents and many experience from the different members from the platform to get that landscape done by the end of this year. We also want to make toolkits. We talked yesterday about toolkits regarding the TS 5701, but there are many other toolkits that could be useful for us and could be registered in our catalog, ready to use for all the people taking part of the platform. But maybe again, people who feel they want to use them, as an example, because all those toolkits will be based on what we have shared within the platform. We also want to have a custom security by design solution and product. We want to define what is important for us, which quality level we want to have when coming up to the market with specific problems that we are facing and how we want to deal with them, which product we want to use. And we want to see those registers in our catalog solution. We want to update the guidelines for railway. And we want to use the threat landscape as the first entry of those guidelines. And first, and last but not least, of course, there'll be a very, very wide definition of all the principles that we are sharing within the platform. So it could be anything that we feel is important to us. We talk about risk assessment. We talk about guidelines, toolkits. We talk about standard. We talk also about what's quite important for us, architecture, generic architecture. So this is what we tend to do by, on the long term, by 2025. And maybe I can go to the last slide, and thank you for attention.
Thank you very much, Catherine, for this excellent presentation on how the cybersecurity solution platform at UIC look like. A lot of questions already, so I will start right away with you, Catherine. I saw a question on the involvement of industry in your platform. So I understand this supplier slot, but maybe you can elaborate a bit more on how industry could take part in your platform.
Okay, so we like to think we are free when we are dealing with topics within the platform, but there is always a way of coming up to us is just to take contact with me or with them. And then we discuss together with the suppliers how they can come up with a specific topic we want to deal with us. And the thing is, any member from our platform can come up with also a specific product or specific supply they want to come and present to us. So it's quite open, but there is no supplier as member of our platform. So we consider that a separate way of working.
Okay, so those industry that are interested in letting you know about their solution, they can contact you directly to be in touch with you. Huh? Okay, thank you very much. A question now to Serge and or Markus. So this is about what Shift2Rail recommends for the secure by design standard. So the question, this is quoted, the IT 62443, 41 and 42. And according to this question, this is different from the technical standard 5701, which is restricted to general system aspects. So do you believe, Serge or Markus, that the results of Shift2Rail will have an impact on the development of 5701 with respect to component level?
In fact,
to take the question.
Yes, I will take the question.
Okay.
In fact, in the 5701, we decided to focus effectively at system level and saying that at component level, we just use 6443, 4-1 and 4-2 as is. The two way are complementary because it is also the choice of Shift2Rail to use and to apply 6443, 4-1 and 4-2. So there is no opposition, just complementary stuff, and there is no issue. And I think there will no impact. 6443, enfin, Shift2Rail results at component level will apply 6443, 4-1 and 4-2, and this is consistent with the TS 5701 approach.
Yeah. Okay. So Serge, I think this is a good way. It's a complement. So the TS 5701 defines the system level, and we define the component level, but also parts of the system, as we saw from the shared security services. This is an infrastructure component, and with the components of the systems, RBCs, interlocking track objects, onboard units, you define a rail automation system, and then you have the system level. And if you know the 62443, the 3-3 is the system level requirements, and the 4-2 are the component level requirements. They are to 98% the same. The system only defines some additional parameter protection which are not relevant to the components. So the system and component levels are anyway the same, but the key difference is, of course, the processes, where the 5701 defines the life cycle of the system, and the 4-1 defines the life cycle of the product. And this is sometimes confused, but needs to be, of course, separated, because they're two different life cycles with different timings, but interchanged topics, of course.
Okay, thank you, Markus. Then there are a couple of questions that are linked to a central point that is the possibility to send information from onboard to trackside and vice versa. So I've listed at least 3 questions that can be answered, I guess, by the 3 of you. So the first one is, was the IC 61375 with the mobile communication gateway considered in Shift2Rail? How to deal with protection profiles on FRMCS or even on third-party services? And a question that is linked to that, is anyone dealing with the radio cybersecurity aspect? So who wants to start with that? Markus, yes, please.
Yeah, so the key concept of the architecture also for 62443 is end-to-end security. So when we define the protection profile for the ACS, we recommended to use the best practices and security controls that exist in the different wireless networks, 5G, wireless LAN. The ACS is the system that switches then between these systems. So when we have a 5G for the rail in the future, maybe we have also wireless LAN in the stations and in the depots. So the ACS is then switching between these topics, also maybe a fallback to GPRS or other systems. Therefore, we don't put any additional requirements on the mobile communication. We just say use the things that are existing, because we don't rely on the security on the mobile communication system. There's only a few requirements regarding denial of service resistance, that we don't have an impact on the availability of our rail automation communication. But the part of the security is end-to-end. This also gives, for the other questions that we had, how to store the ETCS keys. This is also a thing that will be migrated. Currently, we have these ETCS keys in the TSI, but since we are moving to TLS and for the future systems, there will be a migration away from the ETS keys using TLS instead.
Okay. From Catherine, maybe that would be interesting to know as well, because here we understand perfectly from Markus that ETCS and to some extent ATO are applications and their own, and they are dealing with end-to-end security. Nevertheless, I guess it's a common approach that the radio should be secured as well. So maybe from Catherine, you can elaborate a bit on that, because we know that on FRMCS, this is already ongoing and that they are working on that. So Catherine,
yes, maybe. Exactly. They are working. So I know that they are going to contact us, because there should be an assessment from our platform regarding the next standard that's going to come up soon. And we know that, we all know that we have a very imposing person regarding FRMCS that is personified by them. So that's pretty sure that will come up, within the platform, and that will be dealt within the platform that we are leading now. Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed.
But then overall, this is also fitting your approach to have this catalog of solutions, because then it means that end-to-end specific applications can be secured and the risk can be managed properly. But also in complement or in addition, shall I say, you would have other tools to enable an improved resilience of the overall system.
Exactly. Anything that is meaningful for cybersecurity and resiliency is one of those, will be added to our catalog. The topic has, because we know we only started, so we haven't had all the topic that we are going to deal with, but indeed it is in the process, and we want to deal with that as well. Yes. Mm-hmm.
And somehow, if I turn now back to Serge and Markus, this is also in line with the two demonstrators, if I understood correctly, on adaptable communication system and ATO. So there would be two demonstrators in, I believe, X2Rail 5, where you will gain also a return on experience while applying your cybersecurity principles to those two demonstrators, isn't it?
Yes, it is the target to have a evaluation of feasibility of our security profile on adaptable communication and radio communication system, and to see what happens. So we will explore that topic.
Okay, very good. A non-technical related question that might be of interest for the three of you. From a financial point of view, which is the percentage of the infrastructure budget we must reserve for a standardized cybersecurity solution? Who wants to take this one first? Serge, maybe.
I like the question, but
Catherine, okay, let's go.
We like the question because actually that's why we want to have to develop a common view, a common definition of what we have to do within the platform, because regarding that, you'll define a certain level of maturity that you want to develop regarding cybersecurity, and then we will sort of match that with the risk and match that with solutions that are available or should be developed, of course, to meet our needs. And then you could put a budget onto that, and you can say, okay, this is the level I should work on and try to reach, and this is the budget that I should be asking to get that, to keep maybe the level I want to have, the level I have reached or the level I want to reach, and to keep it in the time. So indeed, and the first tool we want to use that is the threat landscape, because it's a very good way of benchmarking the platform and each of us as a member of the platform. So maybe it's a high level question, but there is no real budget so far, but this is indeed what we intended to have at the end of the whole process. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we are dealing here with some technical solutions, but we know that indeed the awareness raising also on the CEO level, so that apportionment of budgets for cybersecurity are secured, definitely. Another question maybe for Markus on so this is a question that I can read. End-to-end security means the PKI on the LAN side, mostly in the mid-secure corporate networks, have to authenticate every system and communication into the rolling stock system. Can you agree with this? I'm not sure if this is a question or more a statement, Markus.
Yeah, just on the previous question, just an answer. We have some experience on the IT security budget. When you do a technical solution, if you have a standardized systems, it's well below 1% of the cost of a rail automation project. That was that's what we saw in the previous tenders that we did. So the cybersecurity is not that important, but we see not so costly. However, we see that when operators put out their own specification, which are not aligned to international standards, not to something that we are now developed with the protection profiles, the cost gets considerably higher, because then you have country-specific developments, and the specific development cost is easily adding a couple of millions to the project. That's why the harmonization of the EU market in terms of cybersecurity is so important. Going back now to the question on the PKI, how to use certificates. Certificates you use only for identifying and establishing a trust anchor. That means a PKI is not a high availability infrastructure. So we can use, of course, with an architecture, the certificate authority that is sometimes existing at the larger operators. But this is only used every 2 years, for example, when we do an update of the communication certificates. And then you have typically a time frame of 3 months to do the update. So your CA needs to be operational every 2 years in this 3 months time frame. And this one is, of course, you can change if you have certain trains that operate only 2 times a year. You can change these timings, but with this is not a critical aspect, and it's not has no impact on availability of the operation of a train operation system.
And from this perspective, we know that there were some ideas on having this PKI infrastructure shared amongst possibly several member states or several railway operators. What is your view on that, having a common PKI solution for potentially several railway operators?
That's a very good idea, and we're proposing this currently in the UNISA in the subset 146. There's a technical note being developed at the moment that shows the benefit of a European rail PKI, maybe even hosted by ERA. We still have to see how this will go, but this is current investigations, and we put together pros and cons at the moment, and this will happen in the UNISIC group in the next few weeks, months, to get this going. And of course, we need to also get you involved, Thomas, on this. And also Catherine, we are doing a presentation also for the UIC, me and Serge, to present also to the UIC what we are doing in Shift2Rail and what will become available in the next years from the industry.
Very good. So we are now approaching the end of this session. I'm sorry we cannot handle all the questions in the Q&A. Very sorry for that. I would like to thank you very much, Catherine, Serge, and Markus, for your participation, for your willingness to answer those questions as well. I will only note one question that we will not answer, and this is the willingness of the railway organization to share information. This is offering us the perfect transition to the next session, where we will precisely discuss the cooperation building and the sharing of information in a trusted manner. So this is now time for a coffee break. We will resume at 11:30 with Marianti on this sharing session. Thank you very much and see you soon.
Welcome back. I hope you all had a nice coffee break. I would like to thank you for the very good participation on the previous session. We really appreciate your questions, so please continue to send them also for this session. I would like to note that the presentations will be available after the completion of the event at the ENISA website. Just allow us for a couple of days. And also for the people that in the morning missed the beginning of the session due to technical issues, we are doing our best to keep a recording of this day of the event, so we can share, if technology allows, of course, with you at a later stage. This session, which is the final one of the conference, focuses on information sharing and cooperation. And it's a topic that came up on all the previous 3 sessions. Both ENISA and ERA believe that without sharing of information, without cooperation, the sector cannot go forward. And for this reason, we have 3 presentations that focus on this topic. I would like to welcome the first presenter, Mr. Olivier de Vischy, who will present the activities of the European Railway Information Sharing and Analysis Center and its key priorities. Olivier has 22 years of IT experience, with the last 7 years in industrial information security. He has also been collaborating, working for the European institutions for more than 8 years. He has worked with the Belgian railway infrastructure manager between the beginning of 2016 and 2018. He held the position of the Chief Information Security Officer. And since 2019, together with Deutsche Bahn, SNCF, NS, ProRail, and Infrabel, he has dedicated his time to build a collaborative community in cybersecurity for the railway. Olivier, I will pass the floor to you and project your slides as well. Ready to go. Thank you.
Thank you. So yes, we have built a community about 2 years ago that is really live, but we were thinking about that community for now more than 4 years, I would say. What is the ER-ISAC all about? ER-ISAC is, first of all, and that's very important, a non-profit organization that really gather the cybersecurity expert in the railway industry, and that is the fundamental behind the organization is that it's let's say a really collaborative approach, which doesn't have any binding agreement in terms of deliverables. So we really are collaborating together on will, on everybody's willingness. And we've been working on gathering RUs and IAMs together also with a lot of important stakeholders that represent RUs and IAMs, such as EIM, UIC, CER. We also have ETRAIL, UNIFE representing the industry. We've been working on building up the information sharing community, and we are looking now to actually boost the community with expertise from the industry. So we're looking at the industrial to actually join the community so that we can have deeper discussions about a lot of topics, and mostly, and that's very important, to centralize all the cybersecurity activity that could be cross-border. So we are an information sharing community indeed. The two main activity we do is information sharing and analysis as well. So we share information about, all cybersecurity initiatives that are cross-border, that could be actually reused within the sector, which are not isolated from an organization point of view. And we also have the purpose to actually review, advise, analyze, provide best practice on cybersecurity matters for the rail, which are very specific for the rail sector. One of the important things I'd like to share is that we are really trying to centralize, as Catherine mentioned before, centralize all the initiatives that are actually having an impact on the sector, so that we can share with the community, we can review it, we can probably improve it or reuse it, adapt it if needed, so that we really have, let's say, an overview of the cybersecurity initiatives that are very important, but also threats, risk, incidents, anything that actually could matter to us all. And that is, of course, that couldn't happen if we don't have the community behind it, as I mentioned before. We also have a lot of initiatives that are ongoing, which we centralize, and initiatives that from the ER-ISAC we also start to build and deliver opinion or in position paper related to some subject I will talk about. So we basically are also under UIC. UIC is an important partner because UIC obviously has an overview of the operational projects that are quite important in Europe, not only in Europe for sure. And UIC is also helping us in actually boosting the ER-ISAC when it comes to have the resources in terms of all the financial aspects that we need to collaborate and organize everything. We are about now 49 organizations, which is about 15 member states collaborating together, and I think it's quite a good achievement. We have now the audience, we have now the intelligence and expertise from RUs and IAMs, as well as important organization. Of course, ENISA and ERA, the two agencies, are really fully behind us when it comes to help us with a strategy and a lot of ongoing initiatives as well. We link very much our work to most of the organization within the rail, so that we are sure that from the operational aspect we understand what's going on, and we can also have you and a glance on the cybersecurity aspect on those operational projects or new activities such as standard review, these directive proposals, FRMCS coming in. We have a lot to have a look at, and we have, of course, to think about what is the most important challenging aspect for cybersecurity that the ER-ISAC committee wants to have a look. Of course, we have members, but we also have a lot of partners, and we are looking at to improve and increase that collaboration on the partners aspect. So we are looking really to get more industry on board so that we can actually talk more about quite a lot of strategical and operational aspect of cybersecurity, namely measure, risk, and threats. So we basically have within the ER-ISAC the main areas where we want to focus, and I think what is important for all of us here is information sharing and analysis. We really are there to boost cybersecurity for small organizations that really don't have all the capacity and experience, intelligence to apply cybersecurity for the rail. We are looking also to tackle safety aspect of the cybersecurity when we want to actually provide awareness and trainings to closer to the safety engineers. And this is something that is one of the priorities we have to that roadmap here. And I will quickly go to the initiative that you basically have seen yesterday and today. So we basically have very well aware of those initiatives that we receive the output and will review to the community as well to whether implement it or provide comments or actually move to the next step by improving those important initiatives. One of the things that we are quite happy about and that we created from the ER-ISAC and from the community is the cybersecurity architecture working group. It's a very important initiative that we launched. It's been challenging due to the challenges we're facing today with the COVID and everything, but we had the resources to really build up quite nice agenda in that working group, which is to deliver zone and conduit for the major CSS system that we have in the rail, and that will be soon released as a draft to the community so that they can review the intelligence that we gather and we build up in a small group that the wider community will be able to actually comment and review, so that we hope that we have a nice, let's say, a position paper and an opinion paper on the zone and conduit for the rail. One of the
Olivier, my apologies. May I interrupt you? I am projecting your slides, so you have to let me know on which slide you
do. Oh, I'm sorry about that.
Yes, sorry.
You can go to the next slide.
Your flow. I apologize.
Yes, please go ahead. You can go to the next slide. Then I was actually on my screen. Yeah, you can go again. Yes, that's what I mentioned. You can go again until, yes, once again, there we go. So that's basically the main focus. And if you go to the next slide, this is where I was. Very good. Thank you, Marenti. So here we're talking about the initiative that we collected so far, which are coming from the community. You've seen that yesterday and today. Basically the addition of those initiatives that we've seen, and then also that Antonio will present afterwards with the cybersecurity EU-CSIRT platform. We also launched the architecture working group. That's very important to us because we need to agree on, the same principle and the same architecture, which is applicable for most of us. So that we can talk about the same thing when it comes to incidents, when it comes to threat landscape, cybersecurity minimum measures and stuff. So the ER-ISAC is really a community to gather the information, agree on the same approach and the same principles so that we can actually move on and, be cost efficient. A little point I want to mention with regard to the cybersecurity solution platform that Catherine presented. Catherine is also part of the board of the ER-ISAC, and that makes really a full, correct alignment on those initiatives. We have one aspect of the solution that are provided to the community, and we have the aspect of information sharing. Where do we stand in the threats, the risk, and all these things. So it's really like a collaborative approach, not only with UIC and with Catherine, but also with other partners such as yourself, Marianti, with the agencies, the ENISA agency, because then there is going to be a quite good exercise on threats, not only landscape, so one shot, but also the threats intelligence, where we actually need to be aware on the fly what's going on, what are the threats, how to tackle it, and then of course look at solutions to mitigate those threats and risk. And this is where collaboration is really important, because obviously, you know, we cannot do everything, so we need to collaborate on that, whether we have a cybersecurity platform, we have solution platform, we have this community here for information sharing and being aware and alerting about, you know, new risk. So, Marianti, to synthesize, I would say that today the three main areas that I think the community wants to focus on, and that's something we're gonna dedicate a working group next month, is to really agree on the three major priorities where we want to allocate resources and time. Basically, everybody's looking at threat landscape. Everybody's looking at risk, not only risk, identification of risk, but also methodologies. You've seen it with Shift2Rail. We're gonna just centralize that, agree on it, move forwards. And once we have the view on the risk and the threats, and once we have the architecture with the zone and conduit, we can actually move forward to the next step, which is of course implementing measures, making training and awareness on standard TS 5701, so that the community is aware, the safety engineers are aware what that standard is all about. Also, the C-level are aware of the impact of that. So there's going to be quite a lot of things to think about. But obviously, it's a matter to prioritize, because, you know, we are having quite a challenging time at the moment. And that's why the community here is really in a time today where we have the community, we have the intelligence, we will get more of the industry on board. It's a matter now to actually get ourselves organized to tackle the main areas where it is the most interest for the community.
Thank you, Olivier. Thank you for the very interesting presentation. We will continue with the other two presentations of this session, and we will discuss all together the questions that come from the audience. Thank you. I will now pass the floor to Antonio Lopez. I'm making your presenter, Antonio. Antonio Lopez and Markus Sacristan. Antonio is the general manager of HIT-Rail, a company owned by 12 European railway companies offering secure IT connectivity and cloud-based services to the European railway community. Within the ForSecure project of Shift2Rail, which will be presented today from Antonio and Markus, he is the team leader for the definition of a CSIRT model dedicated to the European railway sector. And he's accompanied by Markus, who is the R&D manager at Tree Technology, a company specialized in data and information management, big data and artificial intelligence specifically. And within the ForSecure, Markus is a contributor to the CSIRT model prototype. Olivier, yes, apologies. Antonio and Markus, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Good morning to everybody, ladies and gentlemen. Well, I mean, first of all, I would like to thank ENISA-ERA for giving us the opportunity to present this project within the Shift2Rail. Okay, full screen, okay. Within Shift2Rail, and to present, to update on this ForSecure project, which the idea of this project is to define a CSIRT model and a demonstrator for a pan-European collaborative environment in cooperation with X2Rail 3, which was already introduced by them. This work stream within the Shift2Rail project has been developed especially by HIT-Rail and Tree Technology with the collaboration of the UIC also. But before I start this presentation, I would like to remember our friend and colleague Frank Wilson, who passed away on April 2020 due to the COVID outbreak. He was a key member of this project on behalf of HIT-Rail. He will be always, forever will be in our thoughts, okay? Well, let's start with the explanation. Basically, the presentation is split in 4 parts. The first part is in this study for defining the model for the CSIRT, we first of all analyze the background and the context of this initiative. After that, we make a research investigation, the desk research. We also discuss, we also make an online interactive research using surveys, using also interviews, and using preparing a workshop and so on and so forth to try to collect the requirements from the stakeholders. Okay. After that, we define, which we are going to introduce, we define this what we call Shift2Rail model and platform. And the last part of this presentation will be to introduce our conclusions and some issues for the discussion. In this case, it's not going to be a face-to-face discussion, but at least it's some ideas for thinking about. First thing, in order to avoid any problem, all the definitions which are used in our study are based on ENISA key definitions. Okay, this is clear that we use these definitions in order to be sure that we are talking about the same issues. Okay. Okay, basically, as I told you, the background is the Shift2Rail project, which are all for defining the CSIRT model, organizational framework, and to create prepare a demonstrator. Okay. Then basically, in this project, we have had 4 basic objectives. First of all, is to define the stakeholder requirements, and after that, to validate them. And the second part of the project is to identify the relevant platforms and to test and update those platforms, basically. Next, please. First, we started to analyze the context of this CSIRT initiative. And the first thing we identify is that this initiative is within the Single European Railway Area initiative promoted by the European Commission, basically. You know, the railways are one of the most extensive cross-border pan-European essential services, and all the services are interlinked. And you can see like a unique network, as a single network all over Europe of IT and OT infrastructure, together with the physical infrastructure. Therefore, SERA model depends on cross-border interconnection collaboration. After that, we also make a deep analysis of the NIS directive, which now is under revision, as we listened yesterday. Basically, to identify how important the railways as a critical infrastructure, IAMs and IUs are in the European scheme. Okay, Steen. Next, please. We also, in our study, we start analyzing what the difference between what is the CSIRT concept and the ER-ISAC concept. The CSIRT concept, as you know, emphasizes the response, which is clear in the definition from ENISA, the response aspect. Although the ER-ISAC is more a sectorial members driven organization to collect, as Olivier said, to collect basically the important issues and to discuss at high level of cybersecurity issues, basically. We also took into account, preparing our model, the essential services as defined by ENISA study. For sure, as already Olivier introduced, we also took into account the UIC developments, basically the sponsoring and hosting of the ER-ISAC initiative. And as it was said before, we also coordinate our activities with Shift2Rail 3, which is our complementary project, joint entity project within Shift2Rail. Next, please. Well, after our analysis of the context, we identify very clear needs in the area of the CSIRT and basically information sharing and cooperation. There is a need to collaborate in support cybersecurity response. There is a clear need to share threat intelligence concerning incidents and threats and mitigation activities. There is an important need to build teams for handling collaborative response and supporting recovery. There is a need to engage relevant digital service providers and equipment suppliers in collaborative response. There is a need to ensure all the essential services are addressed in this CSIRT model. There is a need to define manual or automatic sharing mechanisms. Can you move forward, please? Then we enter into the area of researching. Move to the next one. The first area we start researching and investigating and analyzing basically some CSIRT governmental models, basically the one from from Holland and Luxembourg. We also make an analysis of the CSIRT in NATO, and we also make the analysis of the CSIRT model as defined by ENISA, basically. All these models, they have different approaches, and basically the idea is to collaborate in order to try to build responses, or at least try to build awareness of possible cybersecurity issues. Please move ahead. Yes, please. We also make an analysis of existing CSIRT or CERT infrastructure all over the world. We made an analysis of the CERT CC, which is a US organization. We also made an analysis of the CSIRT network under NIST directive, coordinating all the CSIRT structures all over Europe. And we also make an analysis of one organization called FIRST, which is worldwide. And basically, it's a forum of incident response and security teams. Next, please. This is a very important part of our analysis. We ran a survey and several interviews with key stakeholders in the railway environment in Europe, basically IUs, IMs, but also policymakers like DG Move, and regulators like ERA and ENISA, for sure ER-ISAC, and some key members of the Shift2Rail 3 project. The survey was answered by 12 IMs, 10 IUs, and 4 DSPs, digital service providers, which is a good response. And they gave us a very important clues in order to try to define the model. Next, please. We also run, in order to collect the requirements and to be sure that this model is co-designed with the stakeholders, we also ran a workshop, which was attended by 25 organizations. We also created an advisory board, who was compounded by external independent experts, and including also DigiMove experts and UNIFE participation. And in this area, the main discussion was they were sharing their experiences on how to build trust in information sharing. We also have several meetings with Shift2Rail members for Shift2Rail 3 in order to exchange feedback and inputs for there to be able to use our outcome and our outputs in order to build and deliver a feasibility study, which is, as our Shift2Rail colleagues explained this morning, is due next year. Okay. At this point, I would like to thank all the participants in all the above mentioned activities and the support and interest. This shows the interest and commitment of rail stakeholders in cybersecurity. This is clear. Then let's move to what we, after all this analysis, let's move to the functional requirements we collected. And this is evident the need to coordinate information exchanges between railway security teams at European level. And this model should be data-driven, and it should be bottom-up. It has to be a model where the railway cybersecurity teams, the SOCs, are involved, and then it's basically they provide information, and then the platform, the CSIRT model, should be able to sustain this management model. Therefore, identifying what data has to be shared between the rail security teams, identifying an operational strategy to enable exchange, and identifying a suitable management model in order to facilitate the other 2 points. Then the next point was important to define the key actors in this model. For sure, one of the key actors in the model is the railway security teams, which are called CSIRT, CERT, SOCs, or whatever other operational form, and they operate at national level. Basically, those are security teams in IMs and IUs are the key members of this platform. For sure, the Shift2Rail platform has an operator, which is also an important role on this. And there is important a role which is provided by what we have called cyber threat trusted partners, which includes public bodies, includes railway digital service providers and equipment suppliers, and includes also commercial rail threat intelligence providers. Those are basically the main actors in the model we have defined. Next, please. But what is important in this slide is that The vision of the model is based on supporting a value-added process, evolving from information sharing to intelligent dissemination and actionable intelligence. This is one of the most important messages I would like to give to the audience for this discussion about this. According to all the requirements we have got from all the stakeholders, there is a clear need for moving from information sharing to intelligent, a value-added process. This is a very important point. And in this process, in order to achieve such a vision, the process should be to aggregate, share information, such as incidents declared by the railway security teams, or vulnerabilities or threats declared by railway security teams or the suppliers or DSPs, in order to go through a process of evaluation, filtering, appreciation, and in order to generate actionable intelligence, creating value-added resources for prevention and response. This is a process which is very important in the model we have defined. Next, please. From the organizational point of view, we have extracted from the previous sections the following basic requirements. The so-called European Union CSIRT model should not be based on a classical approach for CSIRT, because the classical approach for the CSIRT is based on response. This model should not be responsible to provide direct response to incident, assuming that the railways, IMs, and IUs, they have their own security teams ready to respond. But also this model would also help to articulate the collaboration on response from the declared incident. Therefore, the organizational requirement for this EU-CSIRT model should be to act as a hub for forwarding and coordinating intelligence among the rail organizations and stakeholders in the European Union, generate its own cyber intelligence, support cross-border threat intelligence and cybersecurity incidents within the railway sector, and act as a center for cybersecurity expertise, basically. Next, please. Then we move to the model. Let's move to the model. Then, taking into account what I have said before, there is a need for a pan-European collaborative environment for cyber threat information and intelligence sharing in rail. The context is clear. Which is ENISA, the NIS directive, ERA, the CSIRT network, the ER-ISAC, Shift2Rail projects, specifically S2Rail 3. And there is opportunity to build a platform, a model for a platform, which is we have called Shift2Rail, which is a collaborative threat intelligence platform for rail. The Shift2Rail approach is, as we said before, it should be a hub, an umbrella model for railway cybersecurity teams collaboration, coordinated and capitalized by the European Rail ISAC, okay, and under the UIC umbrella as a key facilitator, as already Olivier explained. Next, please. A high-level view of all the relations which this Shift2Rail model should have are all the Shift2Rail platform should be in the middle of exchanging messages with the information managers, with the infrastructure managers, with the railway undertakings, railway security teams, also with the national authorized CSIRT and CERT, and also with what we have called cyber threat intelligence providers within each member state. Therefore, you can see in the yellow bubbles the member state, which is compound for IMs, IUs. It's compound also for the national authority, the national CSIRT, basically. And those the IUs and IMs, we have an direct interaction with this model, this platform, and will we have an indirect interaction, the dotted lines, with other partners, okay, like the CSIRT network, European CSIRT network, and also the possible suppliers. Next, please. Then, just to summarize up to now, I mean, what is the mission, the basic mission, and the objectives of this model and the platform? The mission statement is to support information sharing and threat intelligence generation among the rail cybersecurity teams. And the objectives are the first one is to structure a bottom-up dialogue among European rail cybersecurity teams to provide effective means for information sharing among rail stakeholders, to build community and trust among rail cybersecurity stakeholders, and to leverage information and expertise to produce railway-specific cybersecurity intelligence. Next, please. Okay, let's go into the workshop of this functional model. Basically, what we have defined that the inputs of the Shift2Rail model should be incidents, vulnerability, and threats, which has to be published by the railway security teams. We could be gathered from threat intelligence feeds from suppliers, or it could be generated by in-house threat hunting analysis. And then the outputs should be the results, should be to enrich threat information publication, to generate railway-specific actionable intelligence reports in the form of newsletters, in the form of reports, in the form of emails or whatever, in order to provide these intelligent actionable items to be provided to the members. And then in the middle, we have for sure a process. Move to the next slide to explain a little bit more the process. This is a detailed view of the workshop where the inputs coming from the railway security teams should be treated, should be processed in more or less three main areas. The first thing is to an in-house threat prioritization and filtering, which is a 3H process, in order to determine whether it is relevant, irrelevant, or not. The input that has been generated. This is very important to avoid noise in this environment. The second part is to prioritize the inputs, and we have defined 3 levels of prioritization. The level 3 inputs are discarded, basically stored but discarded. There is not an action. And priority 2, we have defined inputs which could be forwarded without any further analysis, forwarded to all the members after for sure filtering. And the priority 1, those items what they needs an in-house analysis. Okay. This in-house analysis means that we may also seek intelligence from the stakeholders by opening a collaborative intelligence process, and then the in-house process in this area is to basically try to aggregate the information by linking to other events and to add information on prevention and response mitigation measures. And with all this analysis, in-house analysis, and also together with possible collaborative external collaboration for intelligent process, we generate the model will be able to generate the outputs. Please, next, please, Marianti. Well, let's go now to the organizational model. We have defined the actors, we have defined the information flows, we have defined the workflow, the data workflow, and the organization model. I mean, basically, in this slide, what we want to highlight is basically what are the role of all the actors and the main functions. I'm not going to repeat, but basically, doing this analysis, we found that the ER-ISAC initiative is really the umbrella where this platform could be hosted, and they have to stay together with the UAC to steer the Shift2Rail model, and for sure manage everything. For sure, for the IUs and IMs railway security teams, that they have to be member and to share relevant threats and actionable and receive actionable intelligence. And for sure, they need to coordinate the activities with the national CSIRT and their own DSPs and suppliers. For the let's say the DSPs, suppliers, and companies which are trusted companies, trusted service providers, as we defined yesterday by the NIST directive. I mean, they also need to share relevant vulnerabilities for rail and coordinate with the national CSIRT and the country railway security teams. And the role of the manager of the platform, what is we call CPO, is to manage the collaborative platform and for sure to provide a secure communication platform, provide an actionable intelligence, and provide technical support to railway security teams, basically. In brief. Next, please. Then, translating the organizational model to a management structure, our proposal is to build a simple, bottom-up, data-driven organization based on the existing ER-ISAC, which is sponsored and hosted by the UIC. basically. Next, please. Well, then at this point, I would like to give the floor to my colleague, Markus Sacristan, in order to explain in brief the technical model which is underneath the organizational model. Okay, please, Markus.
Thank you. Thank you, Antonio, and thank you, ENISA and ERA, for giving us the opportunity to present this project. So, following from what Antonio just presented about the CHIRP model, what I'm going to do is very briefly present where we stand about the prototype, right? So the idea is that we have defined the model. Now, the next step in our research is to build a prototype in order to simulate and being able to show the concept of the CHIRP. About the data models, we're working on the basis of MISP. As you may know, malware information sharing platform. This is a well-known and quite established open platform for threat intelligence and information sharing. So the concept of event is the main concept, the key concept, the high-level entity for information sharing. With MISP and other techniques like TRP, for example, we can handle control of sensitive information, and we can also consider some functional requirements like the need for anonymization when anonymization is required, and different levels of information flow configuration. We are also integrating existing taxonomies. One relevant one that we have highlighted is the one delivered by Shift2Rail 1 project. This is a predecessor Shift2Rail project, which delivered this very interesting vocabulary for cybersecurity threats, specifically for the railway landscape. So we are using this taxonomy. We are integrating this taxonomy as part of the CHIRP prototype concept as a way to have a common language, to have a common classification model. If we can move to the next slide, in our prototype, what we are doing is we are recreating this network that Antonio just presented a few slides ago. So we are using different instances for simulating the role of the CHIRP and the role of the different RSTs, the rail security teams. This is a low TRL level prototype, so the idea is not to have a final prototype or a final platform. The idea here is to have a proof of concept of the CHIRP model on a way that we can show how the CHIRP can orchestrate and can coordinate the communication and the information sharing in order to show how the provided added value by the CHIRP can help in threat intelligence processes in the area of railway. So on this basis, what we are doing is this is where we are at the moment. Indeed, we are recreating a few scenarios, few examples of different workflows for different use cases, in order to show how the information flow would be or could be in the scenarios, and try to get some feedback to show what is the particular added value that the concept of the CHIRP would bring into the table. If we can move to the next slide, just for the sake of exemplification, I will just very briefly present a couple of examples. This many others could be used. Of course, this is just a way to show a couple of examples of how the CHIRP could work. So here, for example, we can take a ransomware as an example. In this case, the flow is triggered by the discovery and notification provided by one of the members in the community, one of the rail security teams, of this ransomware campaign that they have been affected by, and the notification reaches the CHIRP. One first point is that this information, this notification, may be anonymized if the security team decides so, on a way that the CHIRP will, the rail security team will delegate on the CHIRP for publication on a way that everything is anonymous and the originator of the event is not released in case this prefers to be kept secret. On the CHIRP side, as soon as this information comes in, first quick analysis is developed by the CHIRP so on a way that this can be forecasted quickly to the whole community, to the whole rail security team community, and maybe some early mitigation, early prevention measures can be delivered as quick as possible to prevent the very immediate impacts of this campaign. However, the CHIRP, the role of the CHIRP is not done, and as Antonio also presented in the workflow earlier, there's an in-house analysis. There's a process within the chirp in a way that using maybe static and dynamic analysis processes, the chirp would continue in depth and would reveal further hints about the behavior of this malware, such as network moves, variants, additional information that in a second notification, in a second step, could be also delivered to the community for the community members to improve their defense and detection mechanisms. If we move to the next slides, we can see just a few examples of the screenshots of the process that I presented, how the notification can be reported, how the anonymization process could happen by delegation using the delegation purposes, and after some analysis, what are the preventive countermeasures that the community could benefit from. If we go to the next slide, I will just present a second example. Sorry, the title is clearly wrong. This is not about ransomware. This is another example about OT vulnerability. This is just a second example where we can see other actors in the value chain involved as well. For example, in this case, the event is triggered not by one of the members of the community, but by a vulnerability report provided by a public media, and with an alert raised at the chirp because this is relevant for the railway ecosystem. Then this is triggered as a relevant information for the railway security community, and therefore this information is forwarded to the community members for their warning. Same as we explained in the previous example, and according to the workflow that Antonio presented, there's an in-house analysis process. In addition to reporting this information to the community members, there's further research in order for the chirp to identify more information, and they can enrich the event, for example, with additional countermeasures that can help the community in preventing and in enhancing their capabilities in this regard. However, in this case, since this is affecting one device, the supplier community can also be relevant and can be very, very important for handling the fixing of this vulnerability. So somehow a supplier might be involved in a way that they can help in fixing the vulnerability. For example, by delivering a new framework that fixes the vulnerability, and this framework can be likewise shared with the whole community and can be used for fixing the issue, the vulnerability that has been could have been exploited by malware or by attacks. So these are just a couple of examples. Of course, the purpose for today is not to dive into the details. It's more to exemplify the role of the model. And if we move to the next slide, I will give the floor back to Antonio for the conclusions, and we can close the presentation.
Thank you, Marcos. Well, basically, just to finalize, after this large presentation, is conclusions of our study of the model. Basically, we see that the railway security teams, stakeholders, feel that the system model should cover threat intelligence and information sharing. It's not only information sharing, it's to convert this in actionable intelligence. This is a very important point we have collected from all the stakeholders. We also detected, according to the stakeholders' opinions, is that the network of cybersecurity experts, also pointed out by Olivier, dedicated to the railway sector, is created under the umbrella of the European Rail ISAC, hosted by the UIC, as already said. The main data flows and workshop we have identified are focused on threats, incidents, and all vulnerabilities supported by the model. And we also pointed out that the last conclusion, which is also important for us and for the study, is that this platform should be based on a bottom-up approach on top of the existing processes, not replacing any process, and existing processes and tools, and as a hub center for threat intelligence expertise. Okay, it's not just to replace anything. It's not to replace the UIC initiative. It's not to replace the ISAC platform. It's not to replace anything. It's to add an additional process for railway security teams to collaborate each other on a day-by-day basis. Okay, and to have a very neutral platform which helps to do this collaboration and to provide some kind of intelligence on top. Then, in order to be able to build this platform, okay, after our model, please move to the next one, which is the last one. Okay. No, sorry, this is not the last one. Let me explain to you what is the status of this project. We already defined the model. It's already achieved and validated. Now we are evaluating the different platforms and working on the building of the prototype. This is the ongoing activity. You can have access to our deliverables, which are publicly available in the ForSecureRail website. Okay. Then the last one. This is what I was telling you. Please. This is very important. I mean, all over the time we have been working in this study, we found the one important question: how do you encourage information sharing? How do you are able to build trust? And then we have made a lot of analysis. We have discussed with a lot of people, with our advisory board team members, with several stakeholders in the workshops, in all the interactions we have had with all of them, in order to basically try to point it out this issue, which is very important. And we have written down 8 initiatives, could be 20, but at least 8 initiatives which I would like to highlight. The first one is, in order to have a successful SOC platform at European level, we need to have a high-level support for ISAC, the UIC, and the national CISOs. This is a very important point. High-level support, as high as possible, as better. This platform, or whatever platform, whatever it's called, Shift2Rail or whatever platform, have to get early adopters capable of leading the process for implementing the platform and bringing others to the platform, others users to the platform. This platform should be able to get valuable and relevant information in order to avoid noise and information overload. This is very important. How the members of this platform should be able to be committed to provide relevant information, no noise. Also, the platform has to deliver actionable intelligence. Otherwise, nobody is going to use it. If you want to be a member of this platform, it means that you get something. You get something from the platform. Otherwise, you are not encouraged to participate. The platform has to be very easy to use and highly secure. That's clear. I'm not going to discuss this. It's part of our DNA. Okay. And also, it has to guarantee voluntary and anonymous sharing of threat intelligence information. From my point of view and from the study point of view, this platform should be able to guarantee voluntary information sharing. Nothing has to be regulated at this level. I'm not talking about the CSIRT at national level, which is a law, but this is a voluntary platform to share information and to get threat intelligence and to get actionable items. For sure, this platform should also be nice to provide suitable and useful training for the users, technical training, basically. And also, it's important that in addition to the platform, some of our collaborators, our stakeholders in the meetings have said that it's important to organize this platform and to have some kind of additionally a technical forum for the technical experts to exchange papers, to exchange white papers, to exchange information, which is not a platform, but it also provides a trust-building community spirit environment. And this is what we have defined. And this is the slide I would like to be used for the debate, not the debate, but at least to introduce the real debate about information sharing and cooperation. And this is it. Thank you very much. Next slide, please, Marianti. This is the last one. Thank you very much.
Thank you to both. Thank you. Now I will pass the floor to Klemens GEIGER, and I will share his slide. Give me one moment. I will introduce you and share your slides. Klemens GEIGER, who is a senior system architect and developer for reliable and performant real-time systems, and he's a cybersecurity expert process owner of the cybersecurity performance process in Ex-Bombardier, a member of the CENELEC Working Group 26 since 2016, and member of relevant German committees. He's the member and deputy of the UNIFE Working Group on Cybersecurity since 2015, and with this role, he will present the views of UNIFE on the topic we are discussing. If you allow me, now I will share your slides. Hopefully it will work. And please let me know when you want for me to switch the slides. Moment.
Definitely.
Thank you. The floor is yours, Klemens. Go ahead.
Yes, yeah. Okay. Hello, everybody. Thanks a lot to be able to present our position from the UNIFE perspective according cybersecurity. in railway. Yeah, well, the headline here is industrial readiness for collective response. And maybe at the end, and this is the last presentation, we can give us, or everybody can give us an answer on that, how, where we are in the journey for a complete solution for cybersecurity. Next slide, please. And very first, UNIFE is a European Rail Industry Association, combining more than 100 small, bigger, and large companies in the rail sector in Europe. And our cybersecurity working group, composed by 16 companies, founded in 2016. In the rail sector, and foster and contribute the challenges for cybersecurity there and discovering that. And well, at the very first, we see challenges and priorities. And I think this presentation, if I look back to the 2 days, it's more about priorities and challenges we have to tackle. The implementation of the proposed NIS2 directive, relevant. So 5701 railway application standard for cybersecurity, we consider as a very important milestone from a technical point of view and as well for the management of cybersecurity in the product life cycle. We are all hope for a positive vote on it. And then we always highlight the same thing, I understood. Fosters the collaboration amongst the different authorities, bodies, and decision makers, and railway undertakings. Next slide, please. But what's mentioned explicitly, it makes it really a bit different to the normal cybersecurity approach we have worldwide in different and other industries. A specific challenge in railway. We have a safety process to fulfill by legal obligations. And that means that we have the challenge to integrate cybersecurity or cybersecurity processes to an existing framework. And so that is specific for railway, maybe as well in the aircraft industry, but we have this issue, and both must be managed as far as possible independent, but as close as needed, and to be sure that cybersecurity is not disabling safety and vice versa. And for this, we see the TS 5701 as a first answer to manage this challenge. Maybe you can, if you know that in chapter 5, although this is, and in the workshop yesterday, we highlighted that explicitly, or see that on the screen, how that maybe would fly. Yeah. So, but it is as well important to see that we have a different character of these processes. Just safety demonstration, according legislation, is a long-term issue, hopefully done only one time, and is very costly. And cybersecurity is a short-term issue, much more agile, and sure that are conflicts. But next slide, please. And this has some consequences in the rollout of the cybersecurity framework we need. So we need a strict cybersecurity and dev approach from scratch, because otherwise we see no chance to harmonize safe RAMs requirements and cybersecurity requirements. So that must start with the development lifecycle, not as an add-on. It must be integrated inherently. This is sure as well the topic of the 5701, as I mentioned before. And we need for that another issue, because of the different timeline characteristics of these both processes, we have to have a stronger focus on resilience and fostered by a cybersecurity in-depth approach. To be able, if we identify a new vulnerability, that we may accept it for a certain portion of time because of the lack of a rapid available patch. But sure, that is only possible if we have a strict control of the attack vectors. So the identification and the management of attack vectors, is core. So for that, and next slide, please. This brings, but all this conflict, I would like to say, brings another issue on the table. These long-living products in the field is very, very appreciated from the ecological and economic perspective, but so this needs to maybe a legacy system challenge. We have systems in the field with more than 20 years old, which are more than 20 years old, and definitely not managed and developed from the perspective from today by the cybersecurity challenges. So the consequence is we have a legacy problem in the field. Existing fleets are outdated from the modern cybersecurity perspective. And a refurbishment of all these legacy systems and equipment may need a completely new homologation process. Sure, I think everybody is clear that is in that way not possible. So what is to do? We need an initiative for minimum a risk assessment of the existing environment, fleets. And the outcome of that is maybe translated into a substitution or refurbishment program. Next slide, please. And additionally, the implementation of cybersecurity is a vertical problem. The cybersecurity supply chain is for this essential. And we see in the ecosystem. Consequently, there is a need for the best case standardization solutions on subsystem and component levels. That is the challenge of the business. If we are looking for resilience, these security functionalities, and we see a lot of approaches and efforts. I appreciate a lot what I see on the screen, what's going on the different initiatives for that. But sure, we need as well a standardization on that, on the technical level, but as well based and enveloped in a certification scheme, according maybe 62443 and other certification scheme pushed by the EU. Yeah, and as finally, it's not the first time I mentioned that, we need protection profiles on interface-specific devices and subsystems. Yeah. So this gives guidance for the railway manufacturers and integrators to come to a harmonized approach. That is essential. We must see that all in a vertical perspective, from low level to high level and vice versa. Otherwise, we will not get a solution which is manageable and upgradable. Yes. So that's all. Next slide, please. I would like to mention one issue. We discussed in this conference, in this workshop, very, very interesting and needed initiatives. And this framework we are discussing leads, sure, as for my understanding, helps for a resilience of the systems. But what we not mentioned and what maybe not is clearly highlighted, that the root cause vulnerability is not attached by that. Vulnerabilities are mostly errors of implementation or design decisions and in the products. And this couldn't be found or couldn't be isolated by this reactive monitoring and cybersecurity capabilities for confidentiality. To avoid vulnerabilities on that level means that we have a quality assurance on the development in this in the lab by the developers. And here, railway has a benefit. We have an established quality assurance system for RAMs, and I see it very beneficial if this could be a blueprint for adapting these methodologies with traceabilities or from requirements to implementation, to manage code coverage analysis or testing with independence and so on, or audits. All these technologies are existing and should be worth to discuss in the context of cybersecurity as well. I look at this, the idea for this statement comes when I see a presentation from the cybersecurity platform with the last bullet point 6, definition of experienced assurance. We have this. It's just to learn and to adapt and to maybe tailor it relatively to cybersecurity. Thank you very much for your attention. That was it from my side.
Thank you, Klemens. A very interesting presentation. I would like to invite now Antonio, Marcos, and Olivier to open their cameras so we can try to answer the questions we got from the audience. First of all, a recurring one, a theme I saw. Firstly, we have a very nice naming proposition for the CSIRT model to be called ER-ISAC so that it matches the name of the ISAC. A recurring theme that we got was how the sharing of information takes place within the ISAC, within the CSIRT, and if eventually reaches the industry, which is key. So, for example, if we have a vulnerability, and this is reported during an ISAC meeting, how this will be communicated to the CSIRT model you have defined and reach the industry. Can you all please explain how you see this collaboration? Who would like to go first? Olivier, I pass the floor to you first.
Yeah, thank you. Well, indeed, as of today, we deal with an information that we gather on the ISAC level. And then we look at with the members what's the situation, we do impact assessment, and we just work this way. Once the platform will be ready, they're presented by Antonio, indeed we will have at our disposal the technical platform to have the actual operation guys who will be able to analyze the vulnerability, and then, of course, there will come the NIST directive proposal where, the national CSIRT will have to be involved, and ERA, ENISA, on your side, you will have to record that to the registry of vulnerability because indeed, if approved, the NIST directive proposal will mean that if the vulnerability is actually, cross-border, for the system managed by one supplier that actually covers multiple member states, then there's going to be a kind of a coordination between your agency, between the ISAC, between the CSIRT platform, so that it properly handles, and we can define, of course, also quality levels in terms of response and things like this. This is how it should be in the future. That's to-be situation. The as situation is more complex because indeed, we have a standardized approach, right? I mean, it's super standardized in railway, as you know. So sometimes, and actually most of the time, a vulnerability would mean that you need to maybe look at the impact in the TS. And that is sometimes quite long and big, So we can have a quick fix mitigation on the specific area where the vulnerability has been discovered, right? And when you can extrapolate. But then it's going to be all the times a safety impact to be looked at, technical standards as well to review. So we have to go through the normal process. So right now today, that's one of the key things that we want to address, right? It's the ability to respond in the same speed as mentioned yesterday, same speed for cybersecurity than in the current way of dealing with the standards amendments and approach, the basically IT, OT kind of things, plus also the regulatory aspect. This makes a long process before we get the vulnerability to be applied everywhere. You see what I mean? So if we're talking about an issue with ETCS level 1, for example, that would take a long time before we get there because you have a lot of things to check. The operation aspect, the regulatory aspect, and that means a lot of collaboration. So you have the CSIRT that will help on the operation aspect and provide the report on the assessment. On the national level, there's going to be a risk assessment, which will be consolidated on the cross-border approach. And the ER-ISAC level will be able to actually look at the amplitude and the importance of the vulnerability and to collaborate with you, with the ERA, with the UNIFE, with UNIFE, and with everybody. So it's really, really, vulnerability management is really a collaborative approach that we need to look at more precisely because today we're more into the technical aspect, but we need to see the collaboration, and Antonio mentioned that already.
Yeah, from my point of view, there's two different layers. There's for the railway security teams, or for the railway security teams, basically, which are involved in the national CSIRT organizations. They have a legal obligation to provide the information, to provide incidents when those are relevant. Also at cross-border level. This is a legal obligation, and therefore the railway security teams at national level, they have to fulfill this obligation. What we have defined is a voluntary collaboration to share information in order to provide some kind of actionable intelligence. This is basically another layer of collaboration. Both collaborations should be in place, and for sure, I think the ER-ISAC and the CSIRT platform we have defined is a good way to also exchange collaborative information between, let's say, national authorities and European authorities and the railway security teams, working on a day-by-day activities, on day-by-day incidents, threats and vulnerabilities. But there are two layers. They are not contradict each other. Basically, they have to be complementary and they have to collaborate. That's important. The links to all the national authorities and to all the CSIRTs at national level at European level. For the time being, I don't know. To be honest, I don't know the scope of these two in terms of obligations for cross-border activities, cross-border reporting. We need to analyze when the directive is more clear, and then we need also to discuss how could be implications in the ER-ISAC and also in the CSIRT.
I will agree that what we have seen at ENISA, there are lessons to be learned from other sectors. Sometimes a specific incident can be replicated in other sectors, so having timely information coming, for example, from the energy sector could be valuable also to reach through the appropriate, of course, channels, the railway stakeholders. May I pose a question that came from the audience, whether the suppliers themselves are included in the CSIRT model? And then I would like to hear from Klemens on his view on how he would see a collaboration with the industry. Antonio, would you like to comment on the...
Yes. And basically, in our model, I made maybe the message I didn't explain quite well. The suppliers are included. But when we define the actors, we define the railway security teams, which are the SOC, IMs and IU-SOC, working on a day-by-day basis in cybersecurity, responding to incidents and so on so far. We define also the platform operator. We define a category, which is a trusted partners, which includes the digital service providers as defined in the NIST directive, equipment suppliers, train builders, and also authorities which are involved, and also all these kind of companies, commercially oriented companies, we could provide cybersecurity products into the industry. This is an overall, and it's not only suppliers, it's all these organizations, authorities, and so on and so forth, which could provide very useful inputs and could also help to solve problems, for sure. This is very important. Suppliers are very important in this change. And as far as I heard from yesterday, explanation of the NIS2, it has been also much better developed, the NIS2 directive. It's going to be more explained because in the 16 NIS directive, they only define digital service providers, but they don't discuss about the equipment suppliers, train builders, and so on and so forth. Yes, the suppliers are included in our model. This is the answer, short term.
If I may comment on the proposal of the NIS directive, as far as I have seen, of course, it's not the final text. We will see if that remains. The manufacturers of transport equipment are included as an important entity, not essential. So there are differences, but they have been included. Also, there has been update on digital service providers. So we will see, but depending on how the proposal will go, it could be that there is also the policy framework to support this. Klemens, would you like to comment on what has been discussed on how the reporting of vulnerabilities can be treated, and also on potential collaboration with such a European railway CSIRT?
Okay, I appreciate all what I hear. In basically, I see that is sure a good model, but that is a model. When I look to my experiences, I have some interviews and discussions as well. So daily business here in a railway integrator company. I know how difficult it is to integrate subsystems and to manage the legal and contractual obligations and rapid changing of software flows and so on is a difficult issue, and we have no practice on that. So because the integration is done, there is a contract and that's done, and the warranty is an issue, but at the end, we have over the complete life cycle to manage this, what you are saying, the information changing and so on. But if it comes to consequences, it comes to costs. And that is a problem. When I say it is a vertical problem, then we have a concrete challenge, how we manage in the future needed changing for flows. Who is then responsible for the costs? We have here still currently, I know, contractors, important contractors, suppliers from the railway industry. I'm sitting on the table. So there is a contract and that's full stop. Currently, we need an obligation that they have to collaborate and to support. And this is currently, we are here on the beginning of a road, and that's a game changer in the legislation or contractual layer of the business. I definitely see that.
It is indeed, if I may say, my compliment to what you said, it is indeed true that in terms of feedback provided and from the ER-ISAC to the NIS directive proposal, harmonization of the security measure is of course needed, but it has a cost. And today we know no more than any time that due to the COVID situation, most of our users in IAM, as well as suppliers, they're going through a hard time. So having an harmonization of security measure and moving forward towards a legacy system to be adapted and all these things, that will have a cost. And if we have on top of that the obligation to report vulnerability and therefore having a result behind it, of course the cost is there. And I think that it's also having mentioned that this directive is there, but we need to have kind of some support as well in terms of the financial support to actually apply some security measure, or to try to be more resilient. And that is one of the feedback that we provided from the RU and IM side, at least.
For that reason, to reduce these costs, I appreciate a lot what I hear this morning, that we have approaches with Shift2Rail to try to harmonize the interfaces and needed services for cybersecurity. That is really a need. I see that is a collaborative work for the industry, for all stakeholders, and that must be sensitive and that must be discussed. If we fail on that point, we will not have success.
If I may add, harmonization at all these levels, the technical one that you were discussing, but also the policy one, can also help, reduce a little bit the cost. Also, I would suggest that all these initiatives that you described were, and we saw also yesterday, the presentation of good practices between the stakeholders themselves, like we had the example of a first application of the technical specification. This also helps to share resources and to share knowledge. So this is one of the reasons we're held this conference as well, to make sure that the knowledge is communicated, experiences are shared. And we hope in the future that all these initiatives that you've been describing could lead the sector to a more harmonized approach and with hopefully reduced cost. I would like to thank you all for the very interesting conversations. For the questions that have not been answered, we'll get back to you. I will also repeat that the presentations will be available to the website because people keep asking. It's a very positive thing, though. You presented interesting things, so that's good. And I will now thank you all again and welcome again back to the floor my colleague Thomas. We would like we were discussing whether we should continue this approach and whether we should organize a next conference. But to do so, we want to define which are the topics of interest that you have. So if I may, I will open a poll for all of you to vote on specific topics. If you have other suggestions and we missed something on our list, you can click multiple. And if we missed something, please post your ideas on the Q&A session. So I'm opening the poll now. I hope you all are seeing it. I will read the topics to fill in the silence. The topics we're considering were issues with respect to new technologies, for example, the 5G, of course, and the effect of artificial intelligence, practices in cyber risk management, both for OT and IT, the issue of threat landscape, which came up in a lot of the presentation and seems to be a priority for many stakeholders, and some are having some approaches, and some are referring to the ENISA threat landscape, but maybe a dedicated for the rail. The issue, of course, of how the TSIs should be updated when and which TSIs and which will be the minimum requirements. The issue of uptake of certifications. Are we there yet? What's missing? What should be done? Incident response, because, for example, what we described with the reporting of incidents, it all leads to response, or either proactively or reactively, but it's definitely timely. And then the issues that we are interested in seeing is whether the organizations have sufficient skills in cybersecurity, but specific to the railway industry. Whether there is more need for rail-specific cybersecurity trainings, and also the issue of awareness raising, which is key for any organization that implements cybersecurity, both at the whole supply chain. So you have half a minute more to click on the options you prefer before I show you the results.
Yes, they are.
Mm-hmm. I think we did a good selection. The audience is split, Thomas. The top one seems to be the new technologies and cyber risk management, but I don't think we can draw a conclusion. They're all, all more or less at the same level. So we hope we have a lot then of work to do. We also had another suggestion on the Q&A, security specification on EU links, RSA and OCOR architecture. So the issue of aligning architectures and the security specific, the different approaches on defining architectures, and then the security specification that can be derived from them. We have also another recommendation on convergence of physical and cybersecurity railway, so the physical issues and security issues and how they can link to how they can be linked to cybersecurity. That's it from the poll. I will now pass the floor to Thomas to quickly give a summary of the first session we had today.
Thank you, Marianti. So definitely that was a good session as well this morning on the research and innovation side. So it has been demonstrated clearly that Shift2Rail has gained maturity on the technical demonstrator 2.11. And they will soon demonstrate the applicability of their findings on specific projects such as the automatic train operation or the adaptable communication. We also have seen the alignments with the technical specification 5701, so that's good. It's working in a good direction. And furthermore, the technical interoperability standards for EU railway automations, they're on the verge of being proposed for consideration in the railway regulatory framework. And they will be proposing secure by design shell railway services, so that's beneficial. In addition, UIC will contribute with their cybersecurity solution platform, taking the pragmatic approach in building solution catalog to risks and vulnerabilities identified by the railway users. So it's clear, and I hope it has been highlighted to the participants, that both projects are very interesting to fit the need of the railway stakeholders for harmonized parameters for railway interoperability, but also for hands-on solution to improve the robustness of the railway system against the cyber threats.
Thank you, Thomas. On the information sharing and cooperation side, we saw how the European Railway ISAC is developing. And also what the key priorities and next projects are for the ISAC. We also saw it's very closely linked to the proposal from Secure Rail on the railway CSIRT. The proposal would allow for European-wide incident response. Information sharing and instant response. We also heard the views from the railway industry, highlighting key challenges. I can point out a few of them: how to manage the legacy systems, the cost, which is I think we all agree it's a big parameter, and also proposals. We have proposals from UNIFE on certification schemes and where the focus should be, and they highlighted the need for product level certification. And also on the need for protection profiles on the interface of specific devices. I would like to thank you all for staying with us until the end. It was a pleasure to having you all with us. And we would like to thank you for the active participation over both days. Despite some technical issues today, we managed. What I would like to say that when you log out, there is a survey, so please fill in and give us honest feedback on how we did, so we can improve the organization of a future conference. And we will keep you posted through both ENISA and ERA website on the results of the conference, on the material to be shared, and on any other information which is relevant to railway cybersecurity. Both me and Thomas would like to thank you, and goodbye.